Welcome to Reels on the Rocks, the show where your hosts Whiskey and Sweet Tea discuss film from the unpretentious perspective. Blockbuster Indies is the name of the game, and tonight's topic is the coming-of-age teen comedy Napoleon Dynamite. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, please be advised that spoilers are ahead.
Hey, you guys want to watch my videotape?
Chess.
Welcome back, everybody, to my next humiliation ritual.
So
the Oscars.
Yes, the Oscars was this
happened.
past week. Yes. What were your thoughts?
I guess that's kind of a joke. Did you hear, like, a bunch of the crazy people on the internet, like the red pill people, were saying that John Cena was going through a humiliation ritual?
Like what? Like to be part of like some secret like Hollywood elite group or something?
I guess so, but it was because of the whole him being naked on stage thing, which...
He's been naked in movies, so I mean, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, he went full frontal in Trainwreck, and also, like, what's like, the dude has a ridiculously good body. Like, what's like, if he was maybe flabby or something, or they made fun of his body, maybe that makes sense, but
yeah,
it was funny. But anyway, yeah, any of you guys who follow us on Threads or Twitter would probably know already that I am once again the biggest loser.
The final tally on our ballots was 14-11. I got a little nervous there because there were some switch ups I did not see coming, but I still managed
significantly better than last year, because last year I think I only got like 8.
Yeah, I think
so
it was something like
improved.
That.
Hopefully next year I'll get it right. You know, I'll just bet on Dune winning everything, and we'll see how that goes. No, but well, and I blamed, like, I we'll go through winners and losers we thought about, but I think one of the things that helped me is, I said this last year, but I bet a lot on Babylon. Because,
oh yeah, you thought that was good. You thought they just loved Damien Chazelle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, even this year, I think I did better as far as seeing all of the movies, but one of the things that's hard about, like, doing this is you can't have seen all of the movies. So, like,
yeah.
Some that are definitely on my list for this year to get up to speed with everything are The Holdovers, Anatomy of a Fall, American Fiction, and Zone of Interest. Those are the ones that I definitely need to check out based on the winners.
Well,
but,
Zone of Interest is super depressing, though. I don't know if you want to watch it.
I mean, gotta see it for the wins, I guess. But one thing, like, while the ceremony was happening, you texted me, like, that the Oscars were getting desperate for views. I didn't ask for clarification, but I'm curious what you meant at the time.
It just, well, because with the whole John Cena thing, I was just like,
okay.
This is such a stunt. Like, this is...
Yes.
And you know what's funny is I talked to my mom about it afterwards, and she says, well, they're trying to kind of, reform their image to be, like, a little looser, a little more fun. Well, the problem I see with that, though, is the ceremony may be fun, but the people who are still making all the decisions still suck. So, like, to me, it's for naught. That's how I see it. But like that was the big one, because that was so out there that I was just like, what? Yeah, that's what I was like.
Hey, it's part of his humiliation ritual, so that he can be inducted into the Illuminati and become a reptilian.
Because that's what he needs. He already looks amazing and is an ally. Like, what else do we need from him?
That was something I also did kind of notice about this. Everyone every year always complains about it being, like, very political and stuff, and there was, like, some opinions made, but I feel like it was pretty soft in that realm this year. A lot of the jokes were pretty funny. I actually liked all the jabs at Madam Web. I liked, there was a joke Jimmy Kimmel did about, like, in the amount of time you watch Killers of the Flower Moon, you could drive to Oklahoma and solve the murders yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was pretty, nothing too racy. All the jokes were pretty, cut and dry, like, people-pleasing sort of jokes. But
Yeah,
out
actually,
of
I did hear some people say though that it might be time to retire Jimmy Kimmel, not because he said anything wrong, but just because it's like this is the beginning of his material becoming stale. Like it was almost too safe. You know what I mean?
He's well. I was okay. So first off, like I'm not exactly. I used to like Jimmy Kimmel a little bit more. He's become a bit performative lately. Like it's one of those things where I agree with his politics, but he's just very obnoxious. And what I thought watching, I was because he came out as the host, and I was like, wait a second, didn't they like have no host last year, or was that 2 years ago? Like I haven't. This is the first time in a couple years I've actually had the opportunity to watch the ceremony. But I remember there was one year they had no host, and everyone actually liked that better.
Yeah,
So why did they go back to having Jimmy Kimmel host?
because he's safe.
I guess so. I'm kind of I would
He's
for
basically
next year.
for ABC. He's basically what oh god, I think
Jimmy
no,
Fallon is to NBC or yeah,
no,
like
no,
he's the late night guy.
he is gonna become he's on track to basically become, I think, ABC's new Dick Clark. Because Dick Clark had such a huge influence. He was the host for basically everything. He had his own show, even to the point to where he still exists in the form of the New Year's Eve show that he started or mastered or whatever it was, is still referred to as Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve. So I think he might be on track to be that new ABC persona for them, because he seems to have his hands in a lot of stuff over there. Which I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's something to note. So of course, when they needed a host, they would go to him. But going back to winners and losers, which ones did any of them shock you, surprise you, or was it pretty much as you expected?
Obviously not as I expected, or else I would have won. But I was very happy with a majority. Like the ones that I really cared about winning were, like, for instance, Godzilla. If someone were watching me watch this, it would have been like watching someone watch the Super Bowl. Like,
Yeah,
I definitely got very emotional and heated at some points. But Godzilla, I was super excited for winning, and I was really happy that it did. Best editing, I had a feeling would go to Oppenheimer, but in the spirit of me looking like a football fan for while they were reading everything, I was chanting lame, 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 lame.
You know what this reminded me of with Oppenheimer being kind of a sweep? I remember back in, oh my god, I'm gonna say back in the day, when Lord of the Rings was up. There's the one year Lord of the Rings was up, and it basically sweeped everything. I remember somebody even saying, I think it was somebody who won the foreign language category, was like, we're just so glad that Lord of the Rings was not in this category. When they accepted their
the
award.
Elvish, right? Could have been.
Yeah.
No, and same thing with Titanic. The one thing, and I do think I did this pretty well last year. I can't remember what film I would have been going all in on, but I'm very good at guessing. Like I've coined the term on the show, technically perfect, but usually there'll be like one, and Lord of the Rings fits into this category. Dune fit into the category a few years ago, but like a movie where it picks up all of, best editing, best visual effects, best sound design, like all of that stuff. And It was pretty clear Oppenheimer was likely going to be that film this year, so that helped me a lot. I was mistaken. So for production design and costume design, I knew it was either going to be Poor Things or Barbie.
Okay,
so
hang on.
Split.
I got a rant here, and
Yes.
I have to rant here. I just do. I was first off, the fact that Barbie didn't pick up production design, like costuming, okay, but the fact that it didn't pick up production design to me is highway robbery. I'm sorry, it is. And I felt very, and I think I've talked to you about this before, I felt very disappointed in the Oscar voting body this year, because to me, and I'm not trying to sound like I need a tinfoil hat or anything, they were trying their hardest to not let Barbie win any of the major awards. Like I have a whole theory. That's why that they tried so hard to force it into the adapted screenplay instead of original screenplay, even though the story is completely original and it's just Barbie literally in name only. because it would have won against what it would have gone in that category. And they were able to use Poor Things because it was a visually beautiful movie to pull some of the technical Oscars from it as well. I have to go on around here. I'm sorry, I know you're not going to agree.
No.
But
I actually think you're right. My tinfoil hat's going on here. I agree with you. I think because Barbie was such a controversial movie to some people, and the Oscars has been kind of like, oh, it's a liberal, like, circle jerk, like it's just them praising their own politics or whatever. I feel like they probably didn't want it to be like, fodder for that kind of argument. Mm-hmm. And obviously this is all speculation from me and T, but I feel like you might be right, just in the sense that, like, they didn't want... Same thing with, like, them not giving Greta Gerwig a nomination for Best Director, which was the thing I was most offended about, really,
right.
But, as far as this goes. So I kind of think you're right, and I think that they justify it. I double-checked, like, a few days ago, because I've been saying it for a while. I think Barbie was the highest... It was. By, like, $400 million or something. It was the highest-grossing film last year. So kind of in the same sense where I usually kind of shrug off, like, Marvel movies not winning because they won the box office anyway. I think that's, like, the reasoning behind it. If that is true, and if they were voting against it intentionally to not look biased, or like that they were...
I think the reason why they didn't want it to win is because they, for some reason, see it as an artistic sellout, because Barbie is something that is tangible that you can purchase and buy. And it really bothers me when people refer to the movie as an ad, because it's so much more than that. Yes, I guess it does promote the Barbie brand, things like this, but it's so much more than that. And even the people who were seeing it because of the material discussed and the actual rating of it, it wasn't a bunch of little kids going to see it. But it reminded me a lot of I think it's been almost a decade now, when they shut the Lego movie out of Best Animated Feature, and they came up with this excuse that it had like 5 minutes or something of live action at the very, very end. Like, clearly,
I thought it won Best Animated Feature that year.
No, it wasn't even nominated.
That's interesting.
And they justified it. They justified that it was because it had those 5 minutes of live action at the end. So I think they have this thing about being a creative sellout, even though, like I said, even back then, to me, Lego Movie was the best animated film of that year. And I will say I do personally believe that Barbie was the better of the movie or Best Picture, but that's a separate issue. Or actually, now that we've talked about this, we've talked about how Best Picture Oscars changed over the years and how it used to be, about marketing. And if you really think about it, Barbie would have won it for that reason. If you think about all the marketing it did.
To be the devil's advocate, it technically had a big boost as far as being a recognizable toy brand.
Yeah, and
again,
I think
like my counter argument to that is kind of like what my argument was, or I've said this before, is that it happened to be a really good movie, but even if Greta Gerwig didn't direct it, even if it was a bad script, even if the movie sucked, it would have made a ton of money. It might not have made over $1 billion, but that would be my argument to what I was talking about a few episodes ago about how Best Picture is kind of about the marketing end of things. Right. So it does get a little bit of a boost from that. But like
the awards, I think that it did stand out for would have been definitely production design, and I do feel like it was robbed of that, and they were able to award it to. I mean, and again, I'm not gonna trash Poor Things. Poor Things is its own thing. It's great at what it does. It's not bad or anything, but I do think when you watch the level of detail and stuff they put into things in the production design. If you've ever watched the Architectural Digest, AD Magazine did a video of them last summer, last spring, talking about, they should walk them through and all the stuff that you like wouldn't even think about. You're like, oh my god. And it was impeccably design. And I do think, though, Poor Things did give them an excuse to give it to something else. Not saying that it wasn't gorgeous or the production that wasn't amazing. I do think that gave them the excuse there. The other thing that I want to that's going to be my small gripe is the fact that what it did win for was best song, and it wasn't even the best song in the movie, and that still irritates me.
I think that just speaks volumes on Barbie's soundtrack, though, because for whatever reason you had me listen to one of the songs for a different one, another one that was up for best song, and that one's equally good.
Yeah.
And that too, it was technically stacked in its favor. I feel like if they were really trying to completely brush Barbie aside, that it wouldn't have been nominated for anything.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you know what I mean? Like, it just wouldn't have even gotten nominations for best production design or costume or anything like that. So maybe the way the voting was for sure, like, based on that mentality. But I don't think the Academy completely blackballed it as much as, like, the Lego movie just not even being nominated for anything.
It was nominated for best song.
It was best song.
And it should have won for best song. I'm sorry, it should have.
I thought it did. Am I crazy? I remember the Lego movie winning something. Like,
I'm gonna have to check on this because I was pretty sure it walked away empty-handed. But as far as best song goes, and they did give it to Billie Eilish for "What Was I Made For." It's a nice song, but especially when you see the performance of the two of them on the show, you're kind of just like, oh,
no, everyone liked I'm Just Ken a lot more performance-wise. I had a feeling it could go to either one of them, and before, when I was writing up my list, I couldn't think of Billie Eilish's song in my head, but as soon as I heard it during the ceremony, I immediately was like, oh god, that's that song that everyone is constantly using on TikTok. I think I'm going to lose that one.
I mean, I personally think in the place of the What Was I Made For, because it won Dance everything leading up. It should have been Dance the Night should have been nominated ahead of that. That's my personal belief, and I do think that her song won over I'm Just Ken, and I think that was because of the pedigree of she's already an Academy Award winner for another song. So I think
I actually, even though I think I personally like I'm Just Ken better, I do think that it kind of, as I said, like the cultural impact, I forgot that was the song from Barbie. I've been hearing it constantly on the internet.
Yeah.
People using it for like sad moments and stuff. And
I mean, I like it. It's just, of the two, I think I'm Just Ken was a little more inventive.
That's true. I would say like it's at least fair just because people are already memeing it a lot that it's probably the more popular of the two songs. Yeah. Whether it's better or not, there's that. But I don't know if you've seen Poor Things yet. It is on Hulu now.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that today.
I think you'll feel a little bit better when you see the movie because I think you'll enjoy the message. And even if it's not because getting back to what I thought, I lost in that category because what I did was I hedged my bets so that one of them would win something and one of them wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I thought that Poor Things was going to win Best Costume Design, which I got right. But I thought Barbie was going to take, especially because of what you said about like the Architectural Digest. When it came out, there was a whole hullabaloo about how they built Barbie Land. Yeah. So just because of all the press it got, I'm like, it's got to win Best Production Design. Yeah. Like, I personally kind of preferred Poor Things more, but I was like, with all of the work they put in, like, and I also went with costume design because I'm like, well, like, technically they have a little bit of a boost from just designing it based on the toys, whereas, the costumes from Poor Things were just completely out of their imagination, so that's also where my reasoning came in. But I was surprised it lost that one as well. Also, the winner for costume design, I love how for the first 30 seconds, you could tell she didn't think she was going to win because she's just like, She didn't know what she was going to say, and then by the time she got going, the music came on. That was like one of those funny Oscar moments.
Yeah, they always say if you want to make your Oscar speech last longer, you need to start crying.
You know what I was really, really surprised by, and this is another thing that contributed to my loss. Not nearly as bad as me thinking Babylon was going to win a bunch of stuff last year, but the biggest loser of the night, I would have to say, would be Maestro, because it was nominated in like at least half of the categories. It was up for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Original Screenplay, Best, like it lost everything. It did not win a single thing, but it was up for numerous things. And I thought I actually liked the movie. I think, if I remember correctly, for our finale, I gave it a 3 out of 4. And it is a good movie. But I think that was almost kind of interesting because in a lot of ways, it was sort of the prototypical Oscar bait movie where, it's a period piece, it's based on a real person, it's a gay story, like... It just hit all of these points. You've got like the auteur director and actor who's doing it, who's also been nominated for Oscars in the past for his character work. So I thought it was going to win Best Actor. And let me see if I guessed some other things.
See,
I know Best Actor for sure.
It was up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was up for 7 Academy Awards. There is a bigger loser than it, though, and we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so I have no idea because this movie got so much press and so much hype, and I don't know what happened because it came out during prime Oscar, movie release season, and I literally heard like nothing like a week or two after it came out about it. So I don't know what happened.
As I said, I'm not gonna dance on its grave because I think it is a good movie and Bradley Cooper's a really good director, but I feel like, especially with my opinion of the movie, it's really good, but it's not really outstanding. Like, everything about it, I can think of a better... Like, even Bradley Cooper, is this his best performance? Not really. I feel like the most surprising performance he did was American Sniper. Like, I was talking to my dad, because, we were talking Oscars, and he was, what do you think of Maestro? And I was saying my opinion, but at some point I mentioned, he played the American Sniper in a past film, and my dad's jaw dropped. He was like, that's the same guy? So, he did do a good performance, but when I think of, everything about the movie, I can think of
feel bad
either
for
a
the
movie
guy.
This year or a movie that Bradley Cooper did in his past that was better,
A Star is Born is obviously better.
Absolutely.
He deserved...
Same with his performance in that, too.
He deserved... At least he was nominated. Was he nominated for director? No, he was not nominated for director.
Yeah, no, he was. He was nominated for Best Director for... A Star is Born was up for a bunch of stuff that year.
Let me see. Hold on. I'm saying... I know for this movie he didn't get nominated for Best Director. And
I know for sure A Star is Born... I know because it was a big deal because it was his directorial debut and he was nominated.
Oh yeah, I remember that because people talk about how there's always this problem with the director's arm of the Academy. They don't like to, for whatever reason, reward first time directors or something. There was this whole discussion about it, and they actually compared him to Barbra Streisand for Yentl, and the same problem.
I know for sure A Star is Born he was nominated, but. Yeah, again, it's a really good movie. I just think it's interesting that it was such a promising movie and it didn't win anything. So I think the only thing I guessed it was going to win was Best Actor. I'm just looking through everything else here. I think that's the only one I did. And good on Cillian Murphy. Really, I'm so happy he won. He's been in a bunch of stuff, other Nolan films as well. He was the Scarecrow. I'm sure you remember him from 28 Days Later, back when he was in his late 20s.
And I was wondering why his face just terrifies me, and it's because I remember him as Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
Yep.
And I saw that when I was still in elementary school, and so that freaked me out for ever. So I was trying to figure out why his face is just inherently scary to me. He's not bad looking. That's what I'm saying. There's just I have a specific memory of it, and then when I found out he was Scarecrow, I'm like, that's what it is.
Absolutely. And that actually kind of goes into a couple of awards I got wrong. Again, we always say when we put these lists out, these aren't necessarily what we want to win. This is what we think will win. So there were like a couple of awards where I was like, if it doesn't go to my guy, it had better go to this. And Best Actor was one of those. Best Supporting Actor was one of those. Really good job for Robert Downey Jr. I had I bet Ryan Gosling would win.
I wanted him to win.
It would have been nice. It's one of those where it was either or for me. I'm very happy. The thing that cracks me up about Robert Downey Jr. is like during Oppenheimer's press stuff, he said that he played Iron Man so long that he forgot how to act. And then Oppenheimer was nice that he got to like actually be another person. And frankly, he was like, I recognized him eventually, but they did such a good job making him look like a 70-year-old. But like the next one that I think was a huge surprise to everybody, which was another one where I had bets for Best Actress that would be Lily Gladstone.
Yes.
But it went to Emma Stone. And that's another one where I was like, if it doesn't go to Lily, it better go to Emma. So either or with those. But
from what I've read on Facebook comments... because there's people talking about
the
most reliable source. No, but because there's been a lot of articles talking about Lily Gladstone and how even though she didn't win, her nomination alone was historic, and they were just talking about it from that angle. And then people in the comments are like, oh no, she was. People either saying she was fine but Emma was better, or saying that she didn't have enough material to really stand out. So clearly Emma was the better. And so I never saw this. I wanted to see how you felt about that.
So leading up to the Oscars, there was a lot of people saying that they thought that she was overrated and all this other stuff. Like, I feel like there's this misconception with acting that unless you're just being like hysterical or over the top or really hamming it up, that you're not giving a good performance. I think her performance was subdued because it didn't need to be over the top. The parts of that film where she got emotional were near the end when she was finding out that her husband had been plotting against her. And that's where she needed to show emotion. But even so, she wasn't like bawling hysterically. She was which fit her character because she was a very like subdued, wealthy woman who was very like... respected.
Like very, very quiet dignity sort of thing.
Exactly. Perfectly put. So I think she did a really good job. I think, as I said, it's like either or for me. That's another one where, like, personally, I really liked Emma Stone to the point where I wish she could retroactively erase her Oscar win for La La Land because this is so much more deserving.
Right, this is so much, but I'm still upset because that year Natalie Portman should have won it for Jackie. I don't know if you ever saw Jackie, but watch it.
Never got a chance, but
you will be upset that Emma Stone won for La La Land.
I bet I would be because as you know, I'm very pro Natalie Portman. She is my childhood Hollywood crush. So, but yeah, like. The other thing, I don't know if you saw this, but Lily Gladstone already has a TV show coming out on Hulu.
Oh,
I think
very
she's
nice.
Playing and that was like advertised during the Oscars. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool, she's getting work. Cool. If she wins, great. Right, if not, then she's got a chance to win again, like if she keeps getting roles. Well, I'm wondering if you're getting... Because I said Maestro's the biggest loser, but you could technically say the same of the Killers of the Flower Moon, because it did not win anything.
That's what I was about to say. Killers of the Flower Moon, I believe, was the biggest loser of the evening. And it was up for 10 Academy Awards. It didn't win any. And this is the second movie in a row that Mr. Scorsese is 0 for 10. The Irishman was also up for 10 Academy Awards and failed to win any. So, as much as I dislike how they treated Barbie, I can, take some comfort in that they,
I don't think we're the only ones sick of his crap. I mean, they were making jokes about the runtime in the ceremony.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a bad movie. I think I gave it like 2.5 out of 4 on our, it was okay.
It was fine. It was fine.
But it's just not his best. And part of it, I feel like he's not trying. He's just kind of doing the things that he's been praised for before. Like, I don't know. It's not pushing his craft forward, nor the craft of cinema.
Yeah.
It's just him doing his thing, which is fine. Like he knows what he's doing, but it's not really going to impress anybody.
Well,
And we talked at length about like all the other issues with him being the one to direct it.
Yes,
the
and
framing of the story,
exactly,
like
yeah.
all of this stuff. Like I think no one's falling for it anymore. Whatever his next film is, he'd better actually like try to do something or more original. The biggest win for it was her nomination and the fact that this story is super well known. Like
Yeah.
outside, the book did really well, but movies people see more. So just like I said when we talked about the movie in whatever episode last year, like I think it's at least a net positive that people know about that story.
Yeah.
On a really broad scale.
I don't think I don't think it got a steelbook release either. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, but like you said, it's interesting. It's he's found his niche or whatever, and he's just kind of just stuck in it now.
Yeah.
And, like for example, I remember when The Irishman came out. This irritated me, and I think this is just because he's an old man, and because it is a period piece, so you expect for them to use slurs in the movie. That's expected because it's a period piece. But what bothered me was the fact that he seemed to only pick anti-gay slurs, and that irritated me because to me they can't be like, oh well, it's of the time. I'm like, well, they seem to filter everything else out. I'm not saying they should add more in. It's a very, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like he picked one.
You heard
word
it
to
here
pick
first. More slurs, Hollywood. On T's orders.
Oh my god. But yeah, I don't know. But I'm like, if he wants to do something original, why he loves gangster and mafia movies. Why doesn't he make like a gay mafia movie? That would be awesome.
I said this back when we reviewed The King of Comedy. My hottest take with Scorsese is I like him when he's not doing gangster movies. I think he's made some of the best gangster movies ever. Like Goodfellas is a certified classic. Mm-hmm. But I like him better when he's doing things like Hugo or Cape Fear or The King of Comedy or Shutter Island. Like, the dude has done other genres, and frankly, I find it more interesting when he does other genres.
Right.
Like, he's got a soft spot for gangster movies, but at a certain point you get... And at this point... Like, how many other gangster movies can you even make? Like, I'll give him a pass for The Irishman, because that's, like, one he's apparently been wanting to make for decades. So, passion project, okay, whatever, make it 4 hours long. This was not a passion project. This was just his next movie. He was very passionate about the story being told, and he was very on top of, hiring indigenous actors and doing that. But, like, again, no one likes these 3.5 hour movies, and I don't even really think film bros do anymore. Like, everyone was hyping up The Irishman years ago, but I did not see nearly as many people defending the runtime this time around.
Well, you know what? It's interesting is there's been some talks about, because they've started putting out so many of these, they've been talks about bringing the art of the intermission back.
I'm very into that.
I would not be opposed to that, because having an intermission in itself is it works as a framing device in its own right. Like, I really don't understand why for longer movies they got rid of it. I remember when my mother worked in the theater years ago, back when Dances with Wolves came out, because that movie was so long. And frankly very slow. My dad loves it, but I thought it was very, very slow. That a bunch of theaters wanted to put an intermission into it, and apparently they got into some legal battles with the studios because it ruins the art of the film. And I'm like, well, if you're really doing this for art, why aren't you showing it for free? But
right.
So,
I think the reason it disappeared was because of how cinemas work nowadays with all these megaplexes. It would be a massive headache to not have people hopping theaters.
Yeah.
Or like people scooting in once they see the intermission's over. I think that's the reason why they don't really exist anymore. It's like a logistical nightmare. Because back in the day, it was just the one screen. Any cinema you went to, it was just the one, and then there was a lobby. But now, you go to a cinema and there's like 7 to like 30 screens, depending on how big the theater is. So,
see, I always thought it was because essentially they started to move away after the 70s away from longer epic films, and epic films were kind of just contained to the 2.5 hour runtime. And then when they would have some that ran longer, they didn't want people to think they were long, so they didn't put an intermission into it.
No, I don't know for sure. Again, this is all speculation because I don't know why they stopped doing it. But my guess, I think you're right. But then when the epic movie came back, like again, Titanic is like almost 3 hours long.
Right.
You know, other Scorsese movies are also super long. I think, as I said, at least now, I think it's because of the logistical nightmare it would pose to, you know, where do we put all of these people? How do we make sure that they don't like
sneak into other theaters?
To another theater or something. That's my guess.
Well, and also it allows them to pack more movies in if they don't have to stick intermissions into movies. But that being said, one last thing we want to touch on before we move on to your punishment. The big surprise for me was animated feature.
Yes.
I totally thought it was going to go for Across the Spider-Verse.
I guessed correctly with this one, but the reason I think both of them were really good. Same thing with Elemental, also a really good movie, but I thought it was pretty much going to go to either Spider-Man or The Boy and the Heron. The reason I guessed this one correctly is Miyazaki, the director and creator of Studio Ghibli, he retired like a decade ago. Like, he hasn't made movies in a long time. For whatever reason, he came out of retirement just for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, they're going to give it to him because this very well, he's like 90 years old. Like, this very well might be his last movie.
Right.
And even if it isn't, it's like you don't know like when the next time he directs a movie would be. Like, if he lives to be 120, it still could be, like, 10 more years if he decides to direct something. So I felt like it was kind of like just in case this is the last time we see him, let's give it to Miyazaki. So that's why I guessed that.
I want to touch back on that in a second with what you just said, but what was interesting is this is the second time Miyazaki has won, and he still was not there to collect his Oscar. The first time was because he was protesting, I think, some policy of ours. I forget what it was. And this time it's because he was frankly he's too fragile to travel these long distances. So poor guy. So I feel sad he never got to have his moment on the Oscar stage. But then again, I also have to think the world is bigger than just the United States. He probably had a bigger stage, if not, a more prestigious one in other countries. So,
he's huge. He's called the Walt Disney of Japan. He has a theme park that's not like Disneyland. It's much more of like a nature park. Like, he's fine. He will do. I mean, the Studio Ghibli is his thing. Like, he created it. And even when he's not making films, they're regularly putting out movies every year. So he's fine.
So one last thing, I actually forgot about this until you brought up, it was a kind of it might be a last chance for him is, I personally felt like, because I think for original score, Oppenheimer won Best Original Score, correct?
Yes.
So looking at the ballot, I actually thought it might have been a toss-up between Oppenheimer and Indiana Jones. And the only reason why I say that is because this is supposedly, or could be, John Williams' last score that he ever does. And I think that's also kind of why he was nominated for it.
I think that's why he was nominated. It's one of those, we talked about the Indiana Jones movie in it's most, 90% of that score was just recycled from past movies.
Right.
So as much as I love the Indiana Jones score, it's like he wrote a few new pieces of music for certain sections of the movie. But it's like, does he need to win best score the next time a Star Wars movie comes out? Not really. That was interesting. I did guess that one correctly. But good on that guy, because historically, he went off to do Dune, but Hans Zimmer for a long time was the guy doing Nolan's scores. So that was actually kind of cool that a rookie guy, I don't know if he did the Tenet score, but, not working with Hans Zimmer, someone won Best Original Score for Nolan's film without it being him. So I thought that was really cool. And just Oppenheimer in general, before we move on to my humiliation ritual, I've been rooting for him for so long, so that was one that just felt really good. Even if Barbie had rightfully been nominated for Best Director, I still would have been rooting for him because back when Inception came out, when Interstellar came out, like any time he was up for this award, it was just like, oh, come on, please, this time. But I think it was well deserved, and the stars were aligned. Outside of it being finally his time, I think this is the most deserving movie for him to win, because, we've talked about it before, but this is a boring history movie that was the 7th highest grossing film of the year.
Yeah.
Most successful World War II movie, most successful Chris Nolan movie, just on all accounts. Really,
I'm actually surprised you'd say this is the one that he deserved it for, because I think previously you had said that it wasn't like his best film.
I still don't think it is. I just think it's like the one, if he was going to win, it's the perfect time. And
he won, but it didn't feel like a makeup Oscar.
No, it felt
right.
deserved.
Exactly.
And again, like me saying it's not his best film, that's just my opinion. I still think it is an amazing film. I do think it's arguably one of his best films. But everything about it is like a storybook kind of, because even, a year ago we were speculating on why it was Universal. Now I know why. It was because of Warner Brothers putting their films out on streaming the same day. As soon as he heard they were doing that, he decided not to work with Warner Brothers anymore, which was frankly a smart choice, because they have gone even further at this point. And now if your film is finished, they might not even release it at all.
Right. They're like, oh, we need a tax write-off.
Which is why I still kind of believe that Barbenheimer was Warner Brothers trying to spite him. Like, they knew Barbie was going to take away tickets, especially with all the hype it was generating. So
I will say, though,
know what?
Of the two movies, Oppenheimer blinked, because one of the producers did call Margot Robbie and try to get her to move Barbie.
Huh. What a chicken.
I know. It's like, what were you scared of?
But it's like that, just for all these reasons and more, it was just so satisfying to see him finally win after all this time, and now I can rest easy knowing that if he's never nominated again, which I doubt will be the case, but at least he's finally won Best Director and Best Picture, and arguably for the film that he worked the hardest to get to that point and deserved it the most. So yeah. I think that is all I really have to say about that, and we're on to my humiliation ritual.
Well,
just
all
like
I say is I have just a film nerd crush on Christopher Nolan. Like, his movies are not my general taste, but what he stands for and everything, absolutely in love with that.
Yes.
When he's talking about physical media, when he's talking about the importance of movies that aren't, Oscar bait movies, dude, you were after my heart. Anyway, are you ready to join the elite of Hollywood?
Sure. I'm still not entirely sure what I'm doing. I might have guessed it correctly earlier, but what is my punishment?
Okay, so your punishment is you have to sing the first verse and the first chorus of I'm Just Ken, but you have to really...
Thank goodness.
You have to really sell it like you're Ryan Gosling.
I don't think I'm a very good singer, but I will do it the best I can.
That's why this is a humiliation ritual.
Exactly.
Ready when you are. Unfortunately, we can't play the music because we will get copyright.
No. I've been listening to it. I think I got it.
Okay.
Doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number 2. No one knows how hard I tried. I have feelings I can't explain, driving me insane. All my life been so polite, but I'll sleep alone tonight, 'cause I'm just Ken and... Shoot. I'll keep going, sorry. I'm
keep going.
blanking on the melody here.
I'm just Ken.
Ken, anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my
Is it my
to
destiny?
live and die?
Yeah, to live and die.
My destiny to live and die of blonde fragility. I'm just Ken Where I see love, she sees a friend. What will it take for her to see the man behind the tan and fight for me? I
there you
screwed up the
go.
chorus a little bit.
You are absolutely fine. That was amazing.
I tried, man. It's one of those where like it was. I always choke. I'm never the best singer. Like, and I had the lyrics up just because I knew I'd forget like off the top of my head when I'm put on the spot. But that was fun. That was definitely better than eating a pickled pig's foot. So I'll take that.
With that being said, and you being our resident Ken for the evening, what did you pick for us to discuss this evening? Oh, well, first
my
off,
goodness.
What are you drinking?
Oh, that's a good. So, I don't think I've had this on the show before, but in the spirit of the school election and the rightful president of the high school, I'm going with a Mexican beer, Pacifico, one of my favorites. La Cerveza del Pacifico. How about you, T?
So I actually searched for a Napoleon Dynamite cocktail, and there was quite a few.
Ooh.
But then I found an article, and I want to pull it up so I give the person their right name. They covered a bar that's actually in LA. It's an article on the tasting panel by Eric Marsh. He profiled a Brentwood bar. I don't know if it's still there because it's from 2019, where they have movie and TV themed cocktails. Well, they talk specifically about how they serve one called the Uncle Rico.
Oh God, what's in that?
And it says so basically it was bourbon with, they said, vanilla infused yellow chartreuse, lemon. So I just used vanilla and lemon. I don't know what that is. Honey and mint. And they basically said, how much do you want to? He says, doesn't he just look like Uncle Rico just seems like a cheap bourbon drinker living in his van, reliving his high school glory days. That's why they came up with it. So that's what I did.
Yep.
I did vanilla, lemon, bourbon, honey, and mint, all shaken together. So I'm having my own Uncle Rico. But that's courtesy of a bar out in Brentwood called Bar Toscana. Hopefully it's still there, because this is from a few years ago. But this is the Uncle Rico. And I like bourbon too.
Are you drinking cheap bourbon because you think you're fat? Because you're not. You could totally drink Wild Turkey if you wanted. The Maker's Mark. All right, so
I have Savannah bourbon. I'm classy.
So here's a little bit of it. We've had a lot of serendipity on this show. I am going to first. So I'm just going to see if you can guess. Guess what connection to the Oscars this has, T?
Okay, hang on. I know this. I think I know this. Okay, I don't know what the connection is. I just recognized the fitness guy is the husband on American Housewife. That was my big.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't know that. No, so you know what's crazy? When I was watching the Oscars, one of the I noticed the name Hess, and I was like, wait a second, because I had Napoleon Dynamite on the brain because I was going to watch it a few days later. That's not the same Hess from the movie I'm about to review. It was indeed, as a matter of fact. So the nomination for Best Animated Short Film, 95 Senses, was directed by the Napoleon Dynamite director. And what's crazier is, without having seen the film or known that it was directed by Jared Hess, I actually guessed that it was my guess for Best Animated Short Film, which I lost.
Oh my God.
So that is crazy. The same year that we would be talking about one of his past films.
And in the same podcast.
Crazy, right? So Napoleon Dynamite in the pairing that we're doing for indie mega hits. This one is definitely probably something many of you remember, assuming that you're in the age demographic that I think you are. But who knows? Maybe we have Gen Alpha listening to this show. Other crazy thing. So this movie came out on my birthday in 2004, August 27th. So, wow, didn't even remember that was a thing.
Would you also like to give us your mother's maiden name and your social security, last 4 digits of your social security number?
Yeah, so the number is 97462. No, all of that's fake, by the way. So anyway, I think, so if I remember correctly, Because it was a week ago. The budget of My Big Fat Greek Wedding was 10 million, and it grossed over 300 million. Is that about right?
I actually have the notes right here. Its budget was 5 million and it grossed 368.7 million.
Okay, so yeah. So this one is also pretty crazy. I feel like the profit margin is larger. It did not make more money than My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but its budget was only $400,000 and it grossed over 46 million worldwide.
Oh my god. How did they pull that off?
Well, it helped that it screened at Sundance and it was bought by Fox Searchlight for 4.7 million. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that is taken out of its profits from Fox Searchlight or put into it, but that's how they, that's how they made some money initially. And that too, like we talked about it on the show before, but I feel like a lot of people kind of wonder, if you're making an indie movie, how do you make money? And that's how you make money. You go to a film festival. Hopefully someone wants to buy it, maybe for their streaming platform. Maybe you're lucky enough to get like an indie distributor like Fox Searchlight, Annapurna, A24, like to buy it and put it out there. So that's what happened with this. And it was filmed in Preston, Idaho. So I'll go with, so the director is Jared Hess and the writers are him and his wife. Which is funny. I thought it was brothers, but I realized doing research that I read the name wrong. So his wife's name is Jerusha Hess. Yeah. So this is. Let me go through the actors. This is kind of an interesting film for a bunch of reasons. So the cast, we've got John Heder as Napoleon. We've got Efren Ramirez as Pedro. We've got John Grease as Uncle Rico. We've got Aaron Ruel as Kip. We've got Tina Margarino as Deb. We've got Sandy Martin as Grandma, otherwise known as Mac's mom in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which always cracks me up watching this. We've got Hilary Duff's sister, Haley Duff, playing Summer Wheatley.
That was Haley Duff?
That was Haley Duff. We've got Shonderella Avery as LaFonda. We've got Trevor Swar as Don. I for once my handwriting is bad, so I think I'm seeing a U. I hope I'm saying that right. And then Diedrich Bader as Rex. So part of what makes this film very interesting is that John Heder. So I knew this going into it because it's kind of famous. But so John Heder is a very devout Mormon.
Okay.
And famously, I've got a whole list of fun facts, but I'll just knock this one off because it's pretty widely known. But so famously, because this movie was made so cheaply by not so famous directors and writers at the time, he got cast and, he was friends with the director. But so initially he was only paid $1,000 to play Napoleon. Obviously, he got more money after the movie's wild success, but for a long time, he had only made $1,000 for the film. But so Jared Hess and John Heder, I did not know this, but they both went to BYU, Brigham Young University in Utah.
Oh, that's
both
an
Mormon.
Interesting school.
Yeah, so they're both Mormon, and they were both going to the film division of the school. And they actually made their first short film, Palooka, for school, and it screened and did really well. And it was basically the same thing. It was John Heder was also playing a nerdy guy in kind of a small town, except his name was Seth. And when it was doing the festival circuit, someone saw the film and was like, hey, if you drop out of college, I'll give you, a budget to make this into a feature. And that's essentially what happened. But yeah, I knew that John Heder was Mormon, but I did not know that the Mormon roots went deeper than that.
Right.
And I'll break here in a second to hear your thoughts, but just going off of the accolades, this thing was a massive pop culture phenomenon. And you can see with the awards that it won, not just that it won awards, but what type of awards it won and what categories. So it was nominated for 23 awards, and it won 10 things. It won the Golden Satellite Award for Best Original Score, and the composer's name is John Swihart. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. It did not win, but it was nominated for a Grammy for Best Compilation Soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
And now for its multitude of wins, and you'll see what I'm talking about with cultural phenomenon. So at the MTV Movie Awards, it won Best Movie, Best Breakthrough Male Performance, and Best Musical Performance for John Heder for his dance at the end. At the Teen Choice Awards, it won Best Comedy Movie, Best Hissy Fit, and Best Blush Scene with Kip and LaFonda. At the U.S. Comedy Arts Festival, it won Best Feature, and at the Golden Trailer Awards, it won Best Comedy. And it won some more things, but I think you kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. Like, it was also nominated for a People's Choice Award, so, like, as far as, like, popular films, this thing was on fire. But you had not seen this film up until this review, so I'm very curious what you think after all this time, having not seen it and finally seeing it.
When this first came out, first of all, I remember I was in elementary school when this came out. And I remember shopping in the boys department at Target, and I was like, what are all these Vote for Pedro shirts? Like, what was this about? And I found out like years later what it was about. I didn't understand what that was. But that's my first memory of dealing with Napoleon Dynamite. But when it came out, when I saw the trailer, I just remember thinking, this looks stupid. Not like it was bad, but like it was going to be like Dumb and Dumber type humor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like stupidity. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised that it was very, very charming. It is incredibly charming, more so than it is stupid or weird. Or I even thought it was going to be weird too, or maybe kind of gross. And it was trying to read it based on the visuals. And it was, like I said, it was an incredibly charming movie. It has a lot of like warmth to it, and that was not what I was expecting at all.
The marketing for this was really interesting because I was in middle school when this came out. I think since it was on my birthday, I had just turned 13 when this came out. And in middle school, I actually used to watch MTV in the mornings. I would watch the music video Wake Up, just like getting myself awake for school.
That explains so much of you. I'm just kidding.
Oh, right. But so I did get ads for this movie, but I didn't really know what to make of it because they were also like using it to advertise for... It doesn't make sense for what time the movie came out, but for some reason I remember there being like a spring break thing. I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it. I saw it all over MTV, but I was like, I don't know what this is. It was when I was waiting in line to get lunch at school, some sixth grader, like skater kid, was like talking about it and saying it was the funniest thing he'd seen in a while. And that kind of made me think, okay, if if this guy thinks it's that funny, maybe I should check it out. So I saw it with my mom and my sister like that following weekend, and all three of us were cracking up. And that's another kind of interesting thing that sort of aligns with the Mormon roots of this is, I don't know if you knew this, but you could have very easily seen this film in elementary school because it was only rated PG.
Yes. And when I finally saw the rating, I was like, because I was for sure this was going to be PG-13. I thought this was going to be like a super bad situation.
No. Quite frankly, it's a very squeaky clean movie.
I know, and the most shocking thing about it is when they kill the cow. And again, that happens off screen too. I still kind of wonder what that was for. That seems
so that was actually so a lot of the film. It's funny. This has a lot in common with My Big Fat Greek Wedding. A lot of the movie are actually just sort of autobiographical bits of the director and his wife's life as Mormons growing up. And so that actually happened to the director, Jared Hess. I guess I don't know if he was on the bus or he was waiting for the bus, but that literally happened to him when he was going to school someday.
That is so disturbing. How did that not mess him up for life?
I don't know. I think maybe he just thought it was, because it's sort of played for laughs, not in a mean it's funny because of how dark, like, just the timing of it. You know what I mean? Like, a school bus full of, like, 6-year-olds just pulls up in front right when it's happening.
Yeah.
And as much as it's bad that they would see that, there's something kind of funny about the bad timing and just
Right.
of, like, all the places for that farmer to be doing it. He's just doing it right
like,
next to the public road.
It was like you couldn't wait a couple minutes or something.
So that's why. Like, there's a bunch of things. I guess the Deb character was sort of inspired by Jerusha Hesse, his wife. Like, that's the kind of girl she was in high school. Like, very creative, but also really shy and kind of, you know, awkward and mousy and stuff. And fun fact, I don't know if you know this, but well, I guess you haven't seen it. So that actress who played Deb, Tina Majorino,
Right.
She had a bit of a stint in Hollywood as a child actress. The Mad Max ripoff Waterworld, she played a little girl with a map tattooed on her back.
Am I the only one that thought Waterworld was fun? I guess I am.
I like it. I actually, you know, I think it got harshly misjudged, but as far as like Mad Max ripoffs, I think it's a pretty good movie. A little stupid, but...
Speaking of movies reminding me of stuff, this movie reminded me a lot, and I don't remember if you remember a few years ago I was really into this series called Letterkenny. And
yeah.
A lot of I wonder if it took some stylistic cues from this movie, because everybody is just bizarrely glazed over eyes look sort of thing going on in that show too. And so I kind of wonder if they took some stylistic cues from this. And I was going to ask you that. What was the deal with that? Why did everyone like look like they were just, you know, morphine addicts the whole movie? Like, what was that about?
I think some of it was just kind of, you know, the small town vibe. Like, people are it's very sleepy. Like, people aren't necessarily very worldly or sharp or knowledgeable about things.
Right.
And there's sort of a sense of humor about that, not necessarily laughing at them in a mean-spirited way, but just like for instance, like at the beginning of the movie, that whole Rex Kwon Do thing, the fact that that commercial would be made and that people would actually go to the dojo in the same day and think that it's actually like a legitimate form of martial arts. Like, this also reminds me a little bit of like King of the Hill, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Not necessarily, again, it's not like trying to say like these people are stupid and deserve to be ridiculed, but it is just sort of a funny type of person that lives in this town, which I forgot if I mulled that over. This was shot in Preston, Idaho, by the way, which is like in the southeastern part of Idaho, right by the border to Utah, which is it's actually like,
it's a very Mormon area.
Exactly, very conservative Mormon area, and I think that kind of pulls through into the movie with sort of the attitudes of the people in it.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my guess is for why people acted that way. I wonder, because I bet you are a fan of the film Nacho Libre.
Yes. It's been a while since I've seen it, but
same writers and directors. It's the Hess married couple doing that one as well.
I actually remember, this is bizarre, I remember them showing that to us in Sunday school. And I'm still not sure why. I don't know what that had to do.
It's because he was a priest trying to do the right thing, I guess.
I guess, but it was like so vaguely related. I was just like, come on.
Sometimes Sunday schools do whatever they can to get you to care.
Listen,
I remember I was in like a youth group at church where they showed the end of the Fellowship of the Ring to make a point about like faith in dark, like, you know, in dark times or something. But that they just wanted to play Lord of the Rings because it'd get everyone excited.
Listen, I remember when the big thing was they were telling us in church school not to go see when the Golden Compass came out.
Oh man.
Because I think we had such bizarre... I didn't realize what was happening at the time, but I remember being like, oh, obviously I have to see this now because you told me not to. But I remember them saying, like I remember them telling my class that the movie pushes atheism and that's bad. And then my younger brother said that he was told not to see it because the person who makes it doesn't believe in God. And I'm just like, y'all, chill out. That's like not that serious.
That might even be worth talking about. That's like a whole thing because technically they're right. That was like an allegory written for kids based on like the author was like a super atheist, so that's like a whole thing. But just like you asked me some questions about My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I had a couple of questions for you with what you thought of this film. So first off, same question you posed to me. Why do you think this film is popular when it came out?
So, okay, so at least in my area of the country, the character of Pedro became everybody's go-to impression to do. So I think they really liked Pedro, and by my, because I don't mean South, I mean because it's a heavily Hispanic area where I live. So I really think he had a big influence on that, but I just think it became one of these, like Mean Girls was, like incredibly quotable movies, except it's more feel good than that. I don't know how to explain it. Like I could very easily see why this became popular, but I can't really explain why. Like I said, I recognized a bunch of the quotes from people dropping them at school and stuff, and me at the time not having any idea what that was about. But I mean that was my guess. It just had something. It just had some major appeal about it that really just connected with younger audiences.
And that's the interesting thing too is this, especially with all the awards I listed off, MTV Movie Awards, Teen Choice Awards. This was like kids liked this movie, and especially like teenagers and people in high school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very interesting, especially considering this was a film made by very like squeaky clean Mormons. Well, it had, it wasn't like an R-rated. It's kind of interesting comparing it to stuff that teens like nowadays, because we've talked about Euphoria over and over again.
Oh my God.
But it's almost like kids these days really want, and I mean, that is true. It's not like in 2004 kids weren't like wanting to go see the new R-rated movie. That still was a thing, but I do think it speaks kind of volumes about this film that it didn't need to be edgy or violent or like have, a teen girl getting pregnant and having to get an abortion or like it is genuinely like a movie for all ages, but for some reason, like the demographic that really latched onto it were like teenagers.
You know what I remember, and actually I think that might play into its popularity. It was a coming of age movie that was actually appropriate for people of that age to go see without parental supervision. It's almost like a family movie, but it's a coming of age sort of movie at the same time. And for some reason those seem to not usually jive together. Like they usually at least start at PG-13, if not lean into R. And so I think it was a coming of age movie that people who actually were coming into age, hadn't already come to age, could go see. And I think that also played into a huge aspect of its popularity.
I think so, for sure.
I remember
the
one
next
of my
question
friends...
I've got actually kind of goes with what I was... Because I've got my own theory on why it was popular that's very similar to what you were saying. But my next question would be, what do you think the film is about?
What do I think the film is about? Okay, so... that's actually one of the things I was going to ask you about myself, because I could tell this movie was trying to say something, and I can just be very, very dense for whatever reason. I know I'm serious. I can't, like, if it's not immediately present to me, sometimes it's hard for me to pick it out, but I feel like I don't know what this movie is trying to say. I almost kind of want to be like, this movie's about, it sounds really weird, but it sounds like it's almost about being a good person, basically, is kind of what I felt.
One thing with teenagers in particular, and this kind of goes with most teen movies, especially successful ones, is that there's a lot of successful teen movies are about belonging or about feeling like, you have friends, or just being a part of, whether it's your high school or your community. Like, a lot of teenagers, whether it's true or not, feel like outsiders. And one thing, looking back on this retrospectively as an adult, that is interesting to me is everyone loved this movie. Like, I'd say the heroes of this movie are kind of the weirdo kids that got picked on. But having been in middle school when this came out, popular kids were wearing Vote for Pedro shirts. The kids that would have been voting for Summer were, rooting for Pedro in this movie. And I think that, like, that's kind of what spoke to the kids that were watching this, whether they were in high school or whatever, is like Napoleon, Pedro, and Deb, and to a greater extent the other cast as well. People like Kip, like they're kind of misfits, in this very conservative community where everyone has to fit in their cookie cutter role. Summer, I don't think it was a mistake that they cast Hilary Duff's sister as the popular girl, or that they're like dancing to In Sync for her speech for some reason. Like, I think that's why it really gravitated towards people, and I also think that, because one other weird sort of thing about this film is its anachronicity. Like, it doesn't feel like it's set in 2004, which I'll get into with some of the other fun facts. But I think that made it like just very, it had broad appeal because it didn't feel like of its time. But the message it was sending was just about like, finding your own confidence and, friend group and family. Like even Kip is like 32 years old and you can laugh at him because he's buying time machines online and chatting to chicks all day. But there's something really heartwarming about his internet girlfriend actually showing up at the end and them hitting it off.
One of the things that I noticed about this, you talked about how, a sense of belonging and things like this, is from the beginning, I never got the impression that Napoleon was lonely. And to me, that was quite interesting to me.
So I talk about like cinematography a lot. I'm a big fan of like pictures over dialogue and that sort of thing. But one thing rewatching it this time that I thought was a very powerful symbol, metaphor, like telling a story without telling a story. Because like you say, Napoleon was not lonely at the beginning. And this is your first time seeing it, if you decide to rewatch it again, maybe you'll pick up on this, but I mean, he didn't have any friends. He didn't talk to anybody. He didn't sit with anybody at lunch. And when he did talk to people, he was usually like a pathological liar. I was hunting wolverines in Alaska. I used a 12 gauge, obviously, so these are like things that you pick up on, like, is for like people with insecurities. They tend to lie about things. And just as I said, like, he did not have anyone he talked to at the beginning of the movie. But when I was talking about a visual image, one thing that's very striking and iconic about this movie, because there's a little interesting thing about the symbol I'm going to get into, but at the very beginning of the movie, at PE, what's he doing? He's playing tetherball. He's playing a 2-person game by himself. And what is he doing at the very end of this movie?
He's playing tetherball with someone.
Exactly. And so the thing that's really neat, I had some roommates years ago who interned at Fox, and I got to go to a screening of The Martian on the Fox lot. And while I was there, I got to do a little bit of sightseeing. Got to see the bar from How I Met Your Mother, like the exterior. I got to see, and that's one thing that's kind of neat about the Fox lot, is they're very reverent towards things that made them popular. Like, they've got like a bust of Homer Simpson on one corner, right next to like a bust or like a plaque or something commemorating Napoleon Dynamite. They have a tetherball court.
Ooh.
So obviously that they felt like that was a very powerful image in the film as well. So that's my I will stand behind. I feel like he was very lonely at the beginning. And I felt like that is kind of a good symbol of, like, him finding, obviously Deb's kind of his girlfriend-ish at the end. But, to a larger extent, he has someone to play with.
I guess maybe the reason why I didn't interpret it as loneliness is because even though he didn't have someone to play, he was still playing tetherball. He was playing tetherball by himself. And so the way I always looked at it is he was content. Until this,
True.
Until this,
well, until
this crazy girl who leaves all her supplies at her house, runs off.
There's other signs too. Like if it's very subtle. I noticed it this time. But so when Pedro is new at school, he notices him and he actually takes the initiative to show him around. For some reason, I remembered it as like the principal asking him to do that, but no, he's like, oh, so what is this, like a new kid or something? Okay, I guess I'll show him around. Like,
No,
that
no,
to me is
the
like a sign
principal
of
does
him.
ask him, because I remember there's that scene where he says, "Do you not understand English?" Like, or something like that.
No,
And then,
but Napoleon walks up to them and says, "So who is this, a new kid or something?"
right, and then the
Like he
principal
could have just
him
kept
to give him
going.
a
He
tour.
could have just walked to class.
I guess that's true. He did walk up to their own, but the principal, I thought did ask him to show him around.
It was fun rewatching this because this was a movie I watched like 50 times or something as a kid because it was the funniest thing ever when it came out. But it's been quite a few years since I've rewatched it, so there's like subtle things I noticed this time that I think are a little bit helpful.
And to me, it's more heartwarming than it is funny. So that, to me, that's what's really interesting about this is depending on your age range is how you really interpret it. Because as a kid, it's very, very, there's a lot of the awkwardness and everything is very hilarious to this. And then it's almost like when you, and again, I can't fully speak on this. I didn't see it when I was younger, but when I got older, and I'm watching it now, it's a very, very heartwarming, very kind of, it's almost an incredibly touching movie too. And like, I wouldn't really like it. Like I don't even know if I'd really class. I mean, it's a comedy, but like, it wouldn't be the first thing I think of when I'm like, what comedies do I want to watch? This wouldn't be the first thing that would pop in my mind as like, I want to laugh. Let me watch this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So immature is what
I know
I'm
what
saying.
you mean.
So
but
that's
just
good.
like I say with just like I say with a lot of movies, you need an emotional core for it to connect to people. But even just I was talking about Napoleon specifically with the meaning, but I do think like that whole sense of belonging or sense of feeling seen or, feeling like a misfit in your school is, so this movie is a bit aimless for a while. Like there's not really a plot. There's like the dance and then there's the school election. But the thing that was merchandised with this film was vote for Pedro, right? And that's sort of like the big happy ending is that the weird Mexican kid who, just arrived ends up being class president. And partly because he actually cares. Like it is played up for laughs, like his cousin's like defending the nerdy kid from the bully and stuff.
Yeah.
But like it goes to show that like Summer is doing it for her ego and he is doing it because he cares. He actually is going to do something when he gets elected. And I just like I said, I think it's very interesting retrospectively knowing that like everybody was wearing Vote for Pedro's shirts or at least like loving this movie. And like, I was in middle school when this came out. I know for sure a lot of elementary school kids liked this as well because again, it was for all ages. But the other thing I do think is that like kids are usually very immature. I think a lot of kids liked this for how funny it was.
Right.
But I don't think the message was lost on a lot of kids because there is something about the fact that a lot of people were wearing Vote for Pedro shirts because that also in and of itself is sort of symbolic in the movie. Another like visual thing, symbol, whatever you want to call it, that I thought was very telling is at the end of the film when they're giving their speeches. Summer gets a round of applause. Her boyfriend is standing up and everyone else is sitting down.
Right.
I love that after Napoleon does his silly dance that everyone mimicked at the time and, did their own version of it. But the whole school stands and applauds and it's just Summer and her boyfriend sitting down. And again, like, I feel like that is kind of the message of the movie. Like, we followed Napoleon and his family and his two friends and they're sort of the misfits in the school, but I think that is where the emotional core of the movie is it's like, we don't want these popular kids who don't actually care about any of us to win. We want, the weird kids who will actually do something to represent us. And I feel like, as I said, it's like Napoleon is a protagonist. He's finding his own friends and stuff. But I feel like on a greater level that just like spoke to like awkward teenagers and preteens and kids.
Yeah.
Who, probably been bullied or something. Like they felt more connected to, despite Napoleon being a goofy weirdo, like they felt more in common with him than they did with like the laughably like looking like 1950s couples from like from, I love Summer's boyfriend has the funniest haircut, and I love the way the actor just played up his like cockiness or whatever. It was
Right. That was just like that haircut was like ridiculous. But like you talked about previously, there was sort of an anachronistic feel to this movie because I checked several times. When is this set?
So another thing that is very recognizable in this film, and a lot of people remember about it, is the title sequence.
Yes.
So the reason there's a title sequence is really interesting, and I did not know this until researching. But so, as I said, this was an independent film. It did like the festival circuit, and someone paid to have it made into a feature after Jared Hess like dropped out of college and whatever. So when they were screening this at festivals, the reception was good, but the biggest thing that like stuck with people was that they didn't know what time period the movie was made in because it initially had no title sequence. It just started straight out with Napoleon at the bus stop.
Right.
And so the reason why it's the way it is with like kind of the retro stuff is according to Jared Hess, he's like in small towns, people aren't really on the forefront of technology. Like things are purchased and used practically.
Yeah.
Like unless it breaks, they're not going to go out and get the newest big thing. So which made sense. That's kind of what I thought when I saw it even as a kid. I'm like, oh, this is like a poor community. Like they don't have a Best Buy or something. They're going to use a VHS tape. They're going to go to the thrift store to get clothes. Like they probably have to drive like 50 miles or something to go to like a real store. So that was his reasoning as for why things are the way they are, and kind of like they almost feel like they're from like the 80s or something.
See,
But because of that,
I thought the reason was he wanted to give it sort of a John Hughes feel.
no, it was purely because, according to him, that's kind of how. Because he lived, I think he might even be from Preston, Idaho. He's from like that kind of area, like very rural. Whether it was Utah or whether it was Idaho, like he grew up in a town basically like Preston. So, like as I said, a lot of this film is very like autobiographical from him and his wife. So,
Right.
like, I guess this is just kind of how it was growing up in a town like that. Like, a lot of the stuff you would get was just, like, hand-me-down stuff. But because of the confusion, that is why they did that opening title sequence. And it was done in the cinematographer's basement. They came up with the idea of having, like, the items and all that stuff. And they shot for, like, an hour and got it. But in that, you see things like his school ID, which show that it is for the year 2004 to 2005, like beginning that year in like September or whatever. So it's like that's the school year. Like it was part of it was for the title sequence, but a lot of it was to just kind of say like, yes, this does take place in modern times. So like it was to clear things up.
I kind of almost wish he had kind of left that as.
Well, he technically
It's
did,
ambiguous.
because it's sort of one of those things, unless you're like actually looking at Napoleon's student ID, you wouldn't notice something like that.
Yeah.
It's funny, like when I read that, I remembered I actually did pause because I was curious, because it is weird. I remember even as a kid, like thinking, is this supposed to be the 80s or something? So I do actually remember on his school ID pausing it as a kid to see like if it was that year or not. So it's funny that, but I feel like most people, it's just gonna, like unless you're looking for that, it's gonna kind of be unnoticeable. So he did keep it vague enough.
Well, so my only thing to poke theories in this is, they may not have, they have hand-me-downs, they have all that sort of stuff, but like the radio is current because, that's licensed by, what is it called? Distributors, music distributors, things like that. So, because when they get to the prom scene, it's like, why are they playing only songs from the 80s? That's why.
Well,
That's
technically
what
it
I
wouldn't-
had to Google.
Well, but so at dances they don't play the radio though. They hire like a DJ or something, or they like if they're very cheap, they'll just have like a big mix CD that they put on the PA system or something.
That's true. I would just assume they would have picked.
Especially in a
music.
conservative town, they probably wouldn't even risk the radio because every once in a while they might play something. Especially if it's like a prom, like that would be like nighttime radio, which is when they tend to put on riskier songs.
Well,
So
yeah,
I feel like
Nicki
schools
Minaj's "Freaky" comes on.
exactly Anaconda.
Oh my god.
No, but like it makes a little bit of sense. Schools tend to be like, we're not even going to risk anything. Like all of the songs have been approved by the staff, which that even makes sense too, because the teachers would probably be from the 80s.
Right.
So it's like, oh, these songs were popular when I was a kid.
One of the what was funny is I think one of the school people, I forget who it was. I think it might have been the front desk lady when he goes to call home. And says, "I want to go home" or whatever. Which actually, now that I remember that scene, I guess maybe he wasn't happy. Oh my god, it's like I totally blanked that entire scene out. But when he calls home, the person was wearing this denim dress, and I was like, I turned around, I'm like, you used to wear those when I was in kindergarten. That was like the late '90s. So it's just like, and she was not on the cutting edge of fashion, so I'm assuming those were kind of going out of style then. So I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. But yeah, you see what I'm talking about the whole Friends thing, because he's like trying to go home because of, as I said, if it seems like you like this, so I'd recommend
so
rewatching
confident
it
from the beginning, and I think because he was usually when people would lie, they would make. I remember I had this girl on my bus who told people that like her parents gave away Hummers for her birthday or something.
Well, as I said, like pathological lying can be a sign of being insecure. Like I don't know about you, like there was always like a kid who's like, oh, my dad works for Microsoft or it's BS. But usually that kid was always someone who didn't have a lot of friends, so it's kind of like a sign of like, being wanting people to think you're cool. And actually that's like the tagline of this movie I didn't know was pretty funny. It's the tagline of the movie is he's out to prove that he's got nothing to prove.
Yeah.
And I think that nails his personality perfectly.
But it's like, but because of the stuff he would like lie about, and it would be like weird geeky stuff. Like I was just like, he's so confident. He's not afraid to let his freak flag fly. Like when he picks him up, the bus picks him up the first time. He like is throwing his action figure out the window and dragging it on the ground. Like I was just like, that takes a lot of confidence to be
true. But also he's got that one kid who definitely is not in the same grade as him, who probably thinks he's very cool, but like, that kid's like 10 years old. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And that kid's not going to do him any favors in high school, because that kid might be going to the same building as him, but he's not going to be having recess with him or anything.
Once we saw that it was in a rural area, I was like, oh, that's why they're all on the same bus together.
Yeah. Oh, man. One fun fact that I did not know. So as I said, this was filmed in Preston, Idaho. I don't know why they don't do this anymore. It said in the thing that it was from 2004 to 2008. But Preston, Idaho used to have a Napoleon Dynamite festival.
Oh, my God.
Because they were very proud of the movie and happy that it was set there. And it sounded like it was a pretty nice shoot. It only took 23 days to film the movie. According to the cast and crew, all of the locals in Preston, Idaho were super friendly and helpful, and they often would donate food and stuff to the shoot. So it sounded like it was a pretty nice experience from everybody.
Right? Oh my God. I was trying to remember. I was like, I thought I saw Pedro in something, and I was trying to think of what I saw him in. And then I realized he was in that movie that came out last year. I think it was last year, called Satanic Hispanics, which was just bizarre. So he's still doing stuff. Who else did I look up? I told you that one guy was the what was it? Was the dad in American House? Did you ever see the second Miss Congeniality movie?
I did not. I did
Okay,
not.
so he plays the same guy. Also plays this like gay like designer for Sandra Bullock's character. He's like her image consultant
Oh,
or
wait.
something.
He was in the first movie, though, right?
No, he was no. You're thinking of Michael Caine. Um,
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yo,
never
he was
mind
in the
then.
second movie. They have a character that kind of fills Michael Caine's shoes. He's like her, like stylist or something like that. But
Okay.
that was the same. I was just my mom was like, you know who that is, right? And she explained to me. I'm like, oh my god, that's him. That was just bizarre. He was also in Office Space. He was the guy that lived across the hall from main guy. Oh, speaking of
That was
Uncle
also a fun fact. Speaking of that guy from Office Space, according to him, uh, this was like there were two comedy scripts that really stood out in his mind as being like, cream of the crop, or like he thought were outstanding, and it was Office Space in this movie.
so clearly he has good taste, is what we're hearing.
Yes.
What was I gonna say? So Uncle Rico, right? That's Uncle Rico, right? That's what I'm drinking, right? Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
drinking.
yeah.
This dude made me so uncomfortable. And it took me a
Yeah.
long time to figure out what it was. I mean, first of all, his character was just uncomfortable, but they always sort of rode this line in the movie. I think it was to keep it PG of whether or not he was hooking up with his clients or not.
Yeah. I kind of thought I as a kid, even like as a 13-year-old watching this, I kind of thought he might be, because I thought it was weird when he's going to prom and he's like knocking on the door because he's like, I need to, like, can you hurry up with this sale? Like, I need to go. I thought it was really weird that no one answered the door.
Yeah.
Like, so even as a little kid, I was like, I think he might be doing something to secure that sale.
Yeah. I thought so, and then there was something about him that made me kind of just even more uncomfortable, and it took me a minute, and I figured out what it was. I remember in my queer cinemas class, we had to watch this movie, which if you miss it, that is absolutely okay. It was so disturbing. It was called Mysterious Skin. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't. Sounds
so-
interesting.
Oh, okay. Well,
Well, I mean, like the title has my like what's whose skin? Is it about a snake? What's going on?
Oh, I get you. Well, it basically you find out towards the end that these kids were molested by their coach growing up, and the coach, the way they had him look in the movie looked a lot like Uncle Rico. It's not the same actor, but it came out actually the same year, and I was like, that's why this guy is making me so uncomfortable. He looks just like the coach from Mysterious Skin. Then that's super tragic because one of these kids, because he was so traumatized, he basically thought he was abducted by aliens and spent his whole life searching for aliens, and it was like the most devastating ending ever. It's so sad. Anyway, but like that, but he was also just and then it was just the fact that he's just living in his past the entire time. He has this obsession with going back to the 80s. He was just bizarre. I was hoping we get to see more of the grandmother, but we really get her towards the end and the beginning, because I kind of want to know more about, and maybe I missed it. I wanted to know more about Napoleon's family structure. Like why does he end up living with his grandmother? Like, what was that about? And then, the deal with his uncle and his aunt. And so I was trying to figure that out. And then I still love the randomness of the llama. Like, I don't know if the llama was supposed to symbolize anything, but that was very peak early 2000s humor, randomness. And the random llama killed it.
Eat the food, Tina. No, Rico's sort of the villain of the film. Speaking of like people having insecurities, he's kind of a great example of that, because he acts like he's confident, but you can really tell like he's the typical guy who peaked in high school. But like, people who feel good about themselves do not need to videotape themselves throwing a football. And that too, like he says he dumped his girlfriend, but it's like, bro, you're living in a van. No, you didn't.
You didn't. And so
no one believes you.
I had to look up who that girl was at the end. Because I don't know if we saw her, but I guess that's his girlfriend or whatever coming back to him or
wife,
something.
Girlfriend, whoever she is.
Yeah. Well, at first I was like, because she looked a little young at first. I'm like, please tell me she's not one of the girls we saw earlier in the movie.
No, man, that hit different. Like, obviously, even as a kid, I thought it was creepy when he's soliciting breast enhancement to teen girls. Boy, did that hit different as an adult.
Right?
He's lucky he did not go to jail. And man, it is gross. Like, whether it's Summer and her friend or whether it's Deb, it's like, and that, again, like, this goes to show, like, if he was having an easy time selling that stuff, he would not be asking teen girls. You know, you can tell, like, the next product he was selling was not going well because he would not be desperate enough to creep on girls.
I know.
And that also, the way he was with those girls also kind of showed that mentally he still was a teenager. Because again,
Right.
like a 4-year-old man would not care if teen girls thought he was attractive or cool. But he clearly did.
Yeah, he clearly thought he was just he thought he was all that in a bag of chips. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that's one of the things that made me uncomfortable about his character was that scene in particular. But I feel like back in the day, it would have played differently than it does now. Like, to me,
But like I said,
that's like the start of an SVU episode nowadays.
But yeah, like, I feel like, even having stated it already, I feel like loneliness is kind of a big theme in the movie, because like, Kip, he's chatting with anonymous women on his computer all day. That's all he does. Until he gets a job because he wants to get LaFonda out there. You've got Uncle Rico, who is recently separated from his partner, living in seclusion out in the hills. You've got Napoleon, who doesn't have any friends at school. Like, I feel like that, Napoleon's the main character, but I feel like that's kind of a motif of the movie, of, like, feeling lonely. And it goes with the way things end as well, because not just Napoleon playing tetherball, but you've got Kip and LaFonda leaving together, and you've even got Uncle Rico and his cast after, getting beaten up by Rex,
Yes.
She Comes Back. And I forgot this was a thing, or else I would have watched. There's a post-credit scene, Marvel style, of Kip getting married to LaFonda. So if you waited through the whole credits...
I was actually going to ask you about that because I did watch the post-credit scene because Marvel movies have given me a habit to where if the credits start, I kind of fast forward through them to see if there's any credit scenes, and there were, and I think it's like 6 months later. So I was trying to understand, what is the deal with Napoleon and the horse? Like, I know he was an FFA, like. And that was a throwback to high school, having FFA.
The fact that you had FFA is funny, because I didn't even know what that was when I saw the movie as a kid. Okay. I had to, like... I get it now. Like, it's in rural communities, probably, like, you're from Texas. I'm not surprised.
Listen,
frankly, it looks kind of cool.
There would be days... This is how rural school is. So our school had several programs in it because it used to be 3 separate campuses and 3 different locations, and have to bus us between all 3 of them. When I was there, they consolidated it down to 1 major campus. So this is how rural our school was. When they converged, they decided they didn't have enough room for the for the cosmetology program, so they got rid of that, but they kept the FFA program, which I'm like, really? Because the cosmetology one puts out people like leave high school with a skill. I was like, seriously. But there would be days, because I worked in the yearbook department, and we were on the 2nd floor of this wing, and right below us was the FFA stuff. So there'd be days like the entire wing would just smell like wet sweaters, and it was because people were washing their damn sheep and down there. And I was just like, oh my god, we're rural, but we're not that rural. Like, y'all need to chill. And
why couldn't the cosmetology people help out the future farmers by washing the sheep and giving them a cool haircut?
That's what I'm saying.
2 birds with 1 stone.
I mean, I could never do FFA because the whole thing is like you raise an animal the whole year just so you can sell it to be slaughtered at a festival. That is so upsetting. I could not do that. That's just bizarre. But anyway, but I was trying to say, what is the deal though with him riding in it with a horse at the end? What was that about?
I forgot that there was a post-credit scene until I was doing the research. I remember, like, they added it after the fact. I remembered as soon as I read that, I was like, that's right, there was a thing. They added it later. I noticed it when I got the DVD, like, and I guess I had, like, for whatever reason, I sat through the credits, or maybe it was playing in the background or something, and then it happened. But remind me what happens, because I didn't get a chance to rewatch.
So basically what it is, it's like it cuts to 6 months later. We have a 6 months later or next 6 months or something like that comes on the screen. We have, oh my God, remind me the names, LaFonda and Kip.
Kip.
LaFonda and Kip are getting married. And so her family's on one side, his family's on the other, and there's actually the scene when she, agrees to marry him. Like, I think it's like her brother or somebody just looks absolutely devastated. So that was pretty funny.
Okay, I'm remembering that.
And then so they get married, and while they're getting married, Rico's like, "Hey, Pedro, where's Napoleon?" Because his seat was empty. He was like, "I don't know."
Okay.
And then in the middle of their final vows, he comes riding up on the hillside, and he was like, "Sorry, I just finished taming this honeymoon stallion for you." And then he's like, "Deb, can you take a picture of me on the horse before I get off?" And she does, and he gets off, and then Kip and LaFonda ride off on the horse. But I was like, what is this deal with Napoleon and the horse?
I think I remember this. So I think that was supposed to be kind of a joke of like, because he would always say outlandish stuff, like, oh,
yeah.
Imagine if that guy said that he tamed a horse. Like, you'd think that's like, no, you didn't. It's him hunting wolverines in Alaska again. So I think the joke was kind of supposed to be like, oh, wow, he actually tamed a horse. I think that was part of it. And I think that's mainly the joke. I was thinking it might have gone in, because he was also into like medieval sort of like swords and sorcery sort of stuff. So maybe it would have gone into that. But I'm remembering this now that you described it, and I think that's pretty much the joke, is like, oh, like he rides up with some mysterious horse that he claims he tamed, but he's actually riding it, so it's like, oh wow, I guess he actually did tame a horse. Maybe he doesn't lie all the time.
One of the things I did like about this ending though, was the fact that everybody gets a happy ending, or or gets redeemed in some way, even to the point to where Kip's girlfriend shows up, and we're all just thinking it's some creepy old man or something, this entire movie, and it shows up, and it's like, and she's like hot and beautiful and intelligent.
She's also really nice. She gives that mixtape she's awesome. She's honestly one of the best characters in the film, just because she's such a good person.
Yeah, she's great. So he gets his happy ending. Napoleon ends up with Deb. Pedro gets the office he wanted, because I feel like his journey in the movie was not a romantic one. And then we have even Rico gets his estranged girlfriend, fiance, wife, whoever it is, back at the end. So everybody ends up happy, and I think that's very, very rare, because typically, usually, the good people end up happy, and then the bad people get some sort of comeuppance or something like that, which he did, but he was also still able to end up happy. I guess maybe the idea is that he's maybe he's humbled now or something like that. But I really, really like that ending. That definitely leaves you feeling warm inside.
Absolutely. So I got two more questions.
Yes.
One thing I will say, like you were talking about like Napoleon being confident. One thing I was thinking of when I was watching it this time, and I almost forgot to mention it, I feel like Pedro is actually, like, the thing I thought of while watching the film this time is he's quietly confident.
Yeah.
He's not boastful, he's not loud, he's not someone you notice when he enters the room, but unlike Napoleon, he doesn't lie about anything, and he, like, the prom is like a great example, or the dance, or whatever you want to call it, where like Napoleon is too nervous to ask anyone out until the last minute, but Pedro asks multiple people out because he's got that swag. I feel like they're almost like foil characters in that sense, where like Napoleon is very like vocal to the point of being kind of like almost like he's trying to call attention to himself, whereas Pedro is very quiet.
Yeah.
But he's not insecure about himself. I think the only time he really is like when he doesn't like the way his hair looks after he shaves it off, but otherwise he actually seems very comfortable in his skin.
Yeah. I remember,
despite what I said about loneliness, I feel like his ending is more about acceptance, because that's another kind of striking visual in the movie, is that he's like the only Mexican guy in this white school, and for him to be president, like it kind of goes with that whole feeling like a misfit or an outsider sort of thing.
Now, I want to ask you something. I'm gonna draw a comparison between between Pedro's ending and, if you just give me a little leeway here, and the ending of The Devil Wears Prada. Let me see if what I say makes sense. So in The Devil Wears Prada, there is this scene where they talk about how the designers show Miranda their collection ahead of time, and depending on how she reacts, that means that they're like, one nod means good, two nods he's very good. Oh, there's only been one smile on record, and that was for the designer like years ago. And then pursed lips means catastrophe or something. And then at the end of the movie, when she runs into Andy, which is Anne Hathaway's character again, as soon as she gets in the car, she smiles, basically saying she really approves of Andy's new way in life, is basically what that's supposed to mean. So Pedro being the entire movie very monotone, very expressionless, and then the last two times we see him in the movie, he is just like almost grinning ear to ear. And that's how we leave him. I kind of wonder if there was a deeper message behind that, other than I'm just happy or something like that, kind of like it was in The Devil Wears Prada. I wanted to know what you thought of that.
It's a good point. And you are right, because he doesn't really show a lot of facial expression. I would have to think more deeply on it. Like, in my head, I do think thematically there's a lot of depth to him feeling that way, because his family's applauding him. There's the cake, Felicidades Pedro, Presidente Pedro, so that he won the president thing. So I don't know. That is a very astute comparison. I hadn't thought of that, but that is a cool idea.
I was just curious, like I said, just because he's literally so expressionless the whole movie, that the last two times he was like that, I'm like, there must be something there. But yeah, we need to ruminate on that a little bit longer.
Two questions quickly before we get into our ratings.
Yeah.
One I just thought of while we were talking. What were your what did you think were the funniest parts of the movie for yourself?
Okay, so my favorite part of this movie has to be the summer piñata. I just thought that was so hilarious. Because he's like, "What do you mean we can't hit piñatas that look like our opponents?" I mean,
in Mexico we do it all the time.
Yeah, basically, yes. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was great. It's definitely kind of shows just how out of his element it is, but ironically, it also shows how with the people he is, because everyone's hanging out to do it. It's not like they're walking by him like, that's weird, we're not doing that. People are participating. But I was just like, it just immediately cuts to Bear being hit with a piñata, and I just about died laughing. I feel like there was something Napoleon did, and I forgot what it was, but I thought that was really funny. I mean,
testing the time machine has got to be one of my all-time favorites.
Oh my god. I love that. Then later, his uncle's like, I
forgot to put the crystals in.
Yeah, because that's why it wouldn't work. That was pretty funny. And when LaFonda first arrives, you kind of laugh, not because really you kind of laugh at yourself, because we expect
you laugh because she's real.
Exactly.
She's actually, part of it is because she is not exactly the type of person you would think Kip would be into. She's like a very tall black woman. So it's funny on that level. It's funny that she's real, because you would assume he's just being catfished by all these people.
Right.
And it's funny that it's funny that they hit it off. It's very sweet at the same time, but it's they're such a mismatched couple that the fact that they're getting along and flirting so much is kind of funny as well.
And I love it. I love how she really boosts his confidence. Because he has he has a personality towards the end of the movie. I love that.
And that's, God, I love how he just goes all in. He's wearing the do-rag and peace out.
And he has the chains and everything. Well, I love that that was a pleasant surprise when, because when she's at the station, I'm like, oh, he's saying goodbye to her, but then he gets on the bus with her. And I really like that. I thought that was very adorable, very, very, very sweet. But it would definitely have to be funny. It seems to me would definitely have to be the pinata scene, because I mean it's just like, and then there's just a lot of stuff to laugh at with just how overly angsty Napoleon is. Like everything's like, God, mom, or that kind of energy.
No matter what anyone says to him, it's whatever I want. Gosh,
Right? He's like
gosh.
just so put out. What about yours? Oh, you talked about how top of yours would have been the time machine
Time
scene.
Machine is really good. Rewatching it, as I said, like, so when I first heard of this movie when I was 13, like, it was partly from ads on MTV that I couldn't really understand. Like, I was like, "What? Who is this? What is this?" But then when a kid told me that it was like super funny, I went in with hopeful expectations. The opening scene with that action figure out the window, I was cracking up. And even this time, I haven't seen this film in a long time, so I was cracking up again. And then also at the beginning, I feel like it's really good for kind of showing you what type of character Napoleon is. But
Yeah.
when it's his turn for a current event, and he starts talking about how someone is attacking the Loch Ness Monster and Scotland has summoned all of its biggest wizards to like save Nessie.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Because again, it's like you're supposed to be covering real current events, but he got it off of some, I don't know, internet article or something, probably
Fake Science Monthly.
fake Science Monthly, and that just cracked me up.
Oh,
But there's
I just thought
so
of the
many...
other one. I just saw the other one. When he gives Trisha the picture, because when she pulls that picture out, you're expecting it
yes.
not to be good, or not.
That's a fun...
But you don't expect it to be terrifying, like serial killer terrifying.
So that's actually a fun fact, by the way. So John Heater drew all of the drawings himself. Outside, he didn't draw the unicorn for whatever reason, but everything else he actually drew himself. So that is the actor's drawing of her.
Oh my god! So
I'm guessing he was probably making it bad on, like, maybe he's just not that great of an artist, but like, or maybe he knew that like if it was too good, it wouldn't be funny. But like, yeah, he actually drew that.
Well, like I said, it wasn't just bad; it was terrifying.
The other bit that cracked me up this time and when I was a kid was his little job on the chicken farm. Like that whole sequence from him asking if they have large talons and the guy being, I don't know what you're saying, to just how miserable of a job it is,
and
to him only getting paid $6.
It's like $1 an hour.
It's like
Oh my god!
an hour.
What were they drinking on that farm? That was weird.
I don't know, but the fact you don't know is kind of what makes it funny. It's like, is that just scrambled eggs, or is that orange juice with an egg cracked in it? Like, what is going on?
What is that? Yeah.
Man, yeah. But this movie, there's so many funny moments. Yeah. I guess, so the last question I have is, what do you think is a lesson Hollywood can learn from this movie, whether it be for profitability, relatability, whatever. Like, this movie was obviously a big success culturally, monetarily, etc. Like, this was one of the biggest movies of 2004.
Right.
So what do you think Hollywood could learn from this movie?
I say that there's an underrepresented market that this movie kind of touched on. Like I previously touched on about this, the coming of age movie for people who are actually coming of age, that they can see without having to be hovered over by parents or having to see later when it comes out because they can't go into the theater to see it. Like, I get maybe the other ones for realism, but there's something about being able to see something and to really connect with it. And I think that's something that people would connect with, given, if they would just make it. And like, this fit perfectly into that category.
Well said. More Mormon comedies.
Okay,
gotcha.
That is not what I said.
Well, what do you rate this movie with everything that's been said? What do you think?
I'm gonna give it a 2.5 out of 4 pitchers of sweet tea. My only thing though is I did feel like they're, like you talked about towards the beginning, it's like the plot was kind of aimless, and it almost kind of felt like these were two separate plots. Like these were two episodes of the same TV series. Like the first one's about finding a girl to the prom. The second one's about getting Pedro elected. I mean, like there's the overarching thing of character growth and everything like that.
Yeah.
But it kind of did feel like plot-wise it was two separate. It felt very episodic and TV-like as from the plot structure, the way it's structured like that. Well, I also
Yeah.
missed, you didn't say anything about the short-lived MTV animated adaptation.
I didn't. I forgot it was a thing. I haven't watched it, so I don't really have much to say. I'm sure it was probably pretty funny, but
It was
it's
6
kind of one of those
episodes.
things where it's like it's popular because the movie's popular. It'd probably still be good. I don't know. It's one of those things. But I forgot that that was even a thing. I was mostly sticking to the movie,
You know what I
but
just remembered
I
is I remembered the Pedro guy showing up on a lot of the late night shows doing his Pedro character around the time this movie came out.
oh yeah,
He would
like I
just
said,
show
man,
up
this
and
was
just stare awkwardly and say chess to things.
well. I think I think you're not far off. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 4. I think you're right. I think a lot of what you're talking about comes from the fact that this was their first feature with
Right.
not a lot of, this was based on a short film. So I think a lot of it was just kind of compiling little anecdotes from their lives and being like, how do we, format this to be like like a story.
Right,
I
but it was
think
an incredible first effort, though.
Oh, for sure. One, I'm not surprised you like Nacho Libre. That was their follow up film to this, which was not quite as successful, but it did okay. But I think watching this, I was trying to think like, what is this film's strength? Because it is not like it's got no flashy cinematography. It doesn't have the best writing as far as like there being a story, and even the jokes, like it's not written well. Like it's not like the jokes are written as much. Um, if I were answering the last question I gave to you, I think what I would take as a lesson from this film is that not everything needs to be like edgy or offensive for it to appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like as I said, this is like a very squeaky clean movie, but everyone thought it was funny because the jokes didn't, rest on needing to use a curse word or something like that.
Right.
And I think that's, might not always be the case, but I think that it is worth thinking about that you don't need to shock people to make them laugh. As anyone who listens to this show knows, I have a messed up sense of humor. So if I still think this is funny, it's probably universally funny.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what I think is the strength of this movie, ironically, we don't talk about, like a few episodes ago, I talked about the misconception of what a director does and what their job is and where that strength is. My first thought watching this was the strength is in the acting because that's what's funny. Like there aren't jokes written. It's all about the performance. It's all about
Yeah.
John Heater going, gosh. It's all about, what is his name? Ephraim Ramirez doing his deadpan, like Pedro thing.
Yeah.
And to a greater extent, that means that the director, Jared Hess, is sort of the strength of this movie because a lot of these people, there were quite a few like blink and you miss it like character actors in this movie, like that you recognize from TV shows or other things, but a
Yeah.
lot of these people were like amateur actors, so the fact that he was able to get such good performances out of like nobodies,
Yeah.
like even like somewhat famous people like Haley Duff is kind of great, is such a mean bitchy popular girl,
Right.
and again, I don't even know her boyfriend's or Dawn. I had him written. Yeah, Trevor Swar, the guy who plays her boyfriend. I don't know what he's been in, but he was so good as like this dude who looks like a freaking 1950s Ken doll. you know, so I would say like this is a good example of like good directing. Because what made this movie funny was the acting, and when you are directing non-actors in a way that makes them funny, that is directing.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the misconception. So 3 out of 4, not perfect, not a great script, no like amazing cinematography, but for getting a lot of bang out of your buck, I think this is like a really good movie to study as a film student. Because again, like this was made for nothing, and a lot of the value in the film is just from what they had at the time. Again, like it's amazing what you can do with some really talented actors and a really basic concept, and I think that is kind of where this film lands. But what do you guys think listening? Let us know down in the comments. If you're listening to this on YouTube, was I crappy at singing the Ken song? What'd you guys think of the Oscars? Etc.
Etc. And what do you think? Do you think that Napoleon is this timeless classic, or is it just something that we liked because it's nostalgic for us?
Well, I mean, it wasn't nostalgic for you, per se.
Well, no, but it's very my generation-y.
That is true. But feel free to check out some of our older episodes. We've got quite a few movies we've talked about. But until next time, I am Whiskey.
And I'm Sweet Tea.
Keeping it Kino.
And suck it, Scorsese.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye. Reels on the Rocks is a production of La Prince Laboratories. It is edited and produced by Alejandro Castillo and features original artwork by Asa Esparza and original music by Pat Mars. Follow us on Twitter at Reels on the Rocks and tweet at us with any movies or topics you'd like us to discuss in the future.